Everybody understands Mickey Mouse, few understand Hermann Hesse, only a handful understood Albert Einstein, and nobody understood Emperor Norton. The Principia Discordia.
Here we have one of the very, very best chapters of this book, the one that I have been waiting for. We have Joshua Bolt on a date with Sarah Gay, the nurse, who reveals that she is actually a doctor, but due to the sexism inherent in the time, she cannot get a job as a doctor, so she has to work as a nurse doing doctor duties. Only Ishmael, that is to say Spock, really understands that she is indeed a doctor. With Spock-like logic, he has sussed out the inner truth of what's going on. He is still working his system. The Bolt brothers are still working their system to try to find money so that they can make sure that they can sell out Bridal Veil Mountain. But of course, things are not exactly as they seem, because one of the younger brothers decides that he is going to go all in on Lock and Stop using the system that has been devised by Spock, aka Ishmael Marx. There's a Marxist reference. There it is here. Your Vulcans are all Marxist, or at least Spock is. So rather than mathematically taking the lumps when they come and working to slowly get ahead, the brothers go all in and they lose money, which will become very important in the next chapter. This is one of those great things in a story where everybody has everything going for them, and then they take the big risk that they don't really need to take, so they have snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, which is incredibly human. And we still don't know exactly where Kirk is, exactly where the Enterprise, exactly how Spock is going to get back from Seattle's Wild West into the far future of Star Trek. In addition, some Klingons, who are not actually described as Klingon, they are semi-problematically described as dark, though perhaps that is just an effect of the time period that the story was written. They seem to have caught up to Joshua Bolt, so he is not actually able to make a dinner date that he made with the nurse. The reason I'm so excited for this chapter, though, is because the person who finds him is the Emperor Norton I of the United States and Mexico, a person who, after losing a lot of money and who knows exactly what happened in South Africa, moved to San Francisco, where he was essentially a homeless person that walked his dogs, but he also started writing letters, and he wrote letters proclaiming things like that the Civil War was over, which of course it wasn't, and he seriously wrote letters specifically to Abraham Lincoln and Queen Victoria, and they considered them deeply and thought about what he had to say. He was considered to be the emperor by the people of San Francisco. His dogs were treated well, and he did that one thing that everybody kind of wants to do, which is printed his own money, and that it was accepted. This is kind of the character of San Francisco, and I'm glad to see that this book continues to weave in real historical figures, especially the oddballs, which is, of course, what Star Trek is so good at, is celebrating the weirdness, the infinite diversity and infinite combinations that is human life and life beyond humanity. That is why Ishmael, aka Spock, works so well, and that is why the Emperor gets along with him so very well. One other thing that happens in this chapter is that Spock plays a game of chess for higher stakes. And of course, because it is Spock and he has that ability to see logic in ways that humans can, even if he doesn't know that he's Spock, he is able to really run the table, both in pool because he can calculate the shots, and also in the chess game, showing that Spock not only is able to tap into his Vulcan side, to tap into his logical side, but also he is able to play the human games as we've seen before. This showcases really, really well that Spock is not just a Vulcan, that he is indeed half human, and he has sympathies and ideas and ability to connect with Earth, which is why Spock's half human nature is literally so important, because he is not just Vulcan, he is not just human, and his story is about being in between. And it's especially hard when you don't know exactly who you are. That, of course, suggests, as always, Spock being given a queer reading, being in a liminal state between all the different definitions of what he is. He's called a Vulcan by Dr. McCoy. However, his so-called green blood is also partially human, and so he does have that emotion. Indeed, he feels it much more angrily than others, but because of this anger, and as we've seen when he defended himself in the previous chapters, he is able to carefully and coolly and analytically dispatch his anger in the right places. Spock is able to fill that role beyond humanity, not just something that we could become, but also something different. And that difference is accepted. And that is one of the great things about Star Trek in general, and especially in this book, where the people who don't really understand what Ishmael, aka Spock, is coming from, are also able to do. They're able to accept that they have this person, Ishmael Marks, who seems to be someone's cousin because that's the cover story. And rather than trying too hard to figure out exactly what he is, though they definitely talk about it, they accept that he is definitely a benefit to their community because of his skills. This idea of his actions and what he does are what is most important. This has been Spock in Seattle, yet again. I will see you next time. We're getting so close to the end. Just a few more chapters to go to find out if Spock will ever reunite with his boyfriend. I mean, his captain. See you then.